I bought my nephew a laptop to help him study, thinking I was investing in his future. Weeks later, I found out what he traded it for, and it broke more than trust. You ever get that itch in your chest? The kind that feels like something big is about to happen, like you're finally doing something right after years of just surviving? That was me the day I bought that laptop. I can still remember the look on the cashier's face when she told me the final price. I did not flinch. Not because I am made of money, but because it meant something more. This was not just some shiny gadget. This was hope packed into a 15-inch frame. See, my nephew, Jason, had just started middle school, and for once, the kid was showing signs of trying. I mean, really trying. He was asking questions about science fairs and coding clubs. The kind of stuff that made me think, maybe he will not end up like the rest of us. Jason is 11. His mom, my sister Carrie, had him way too young, and the guy who got her pregnant disappeared before the baby shower balloons even deflated. I have always tried to fill the gap, you know? Not his dad, just someone stable. Someone who showed up. So when he mentioned needing a laptop for school, I knew what I had to do. It took me a couple months. I picked up extra shifts, skipped out on a weekend trip with the guys, canceled my own dentist appointment, which, yeah, maybe I regret now that one of my molars clicks every time I chew gum. But screw it. That was the price. And when I finally walked into that house, holding that box with the Apple logo on it, I felt proud. Jason's eyes lit up like I had handed him a winning lottery ticket. I could tell he was trying to play it cool, but the kid was bouncing on his toes. He kept saying, "Really? For me? Like, actually mine?" And I just nodded. Told him it was for school. For research. For the future. That night, I drove home with this weird mix of joy and sadness burning in my chest. I never got anything like that when I was a kid. Closest thing was a hand-me-down calculator with half the buttons worn off. So yeah, giving that laptop to Jason, it felt like rewriting a small piece of history. Like maybe this kid could have a shot I never got. I imagined him typing out essays, watching educational videos, maybe even building something cool, like a robot, or one of those websites that somehow makes money by just existing. I had hope. Real, stubborn, beautiful hope. But what I did not know then, what would gut me just a few weeks later, was that Jason had a very different idea of what future meant. And he had already made a trade I would never forget. At first, everything felt right. You know that warm, quiet feeling after you do something good? That stayed with me for a while. Every time I thought about Jason with that laptop, I felt lighter. Like I had finally made a dent in the cycle. Maybe this time, the kid would get ahead. Maybe that thing would unlock something big in him. Carrie texted me a few days after I dropped it off. Said Jason was already digging into his homework, that he was super into it. Her words, not mine. I will admit, that made me smile. I was sitting in my truck on lunch break, chewing on some overcooked chicken wrap, and suddenly the food did not taste so bad. But you ever feel that itch when something starts to feel a little too quiet? Week 1 passed. Nothing unusual. Then week 2 came, and I started noticing some odd things. I stopped by their place one afternoon to drop off some groceries. Carrie was out back having a smoke, scrolling on her phone, and Jason was holed up in his room. I asked her how the schoolwork was going. She nodded vaguely, said something like, "Oh yeah, he's using it all the time." But the way she said it felt lazy, like she had no clue. Inside, his door was open just a crack, and I saw him hunched on the edge of his bed, not typing, not researching, just staring at the wall. No laptop in sight. I figured maybe it was charging, or he had put it away. I did not want to be that guy, so I just let it slide. Then came the emails from the school. Nothing dramatic. Just those automated progress reports. The kind that say things like, missing assignment number 2, and did not submit project on time. Now that caught me off guard. Jason had been so hyped about using that laptop. I thought maybe it was a mistake. Maybe the teacher had not updated the grade book yet. But it kept happening. Week 3, I started asking more direct questions. Jason barely looked at me. Said school was fine, and everything was chill. I asked him what apps he was using for homework, if he had tried those virtual science labs I had told him about. He just nodded along, mumbling stuff like, "Yeah, I think so." That was the moment I knew something was off. He was not avoiding schoolwork. He was avoiding me. And that meant one of two things. Either he was hiding something, or something was already gone. I tried to push the thought out of my head, but it stuck with me like a splinter under the skin. Something was wrong, and I was about to find out just how wrong. I told myself I was overthinking it. that maybe Jason was just going through a phase. Kids get quiet, right? They get overwhelmed, or lazy, or distracted. Maybe he was still figuring things out. Maybe the laptop was just new, and he had not settled into a rhythm yet. I kept coming up with excuses like that. Because the truth? I did not want to believe something had gone wrong. But the clues kept stacking. One night, I stopped by unannounced. I had picked up some takeout, Chinese, his favorite, and I figured it would be a good excuse to check in. Carrie was at work, which gave me a clear shot to ask Jason a few questions without her hovering around. The second I walked in, he looked surprised. Not the good kind, either. He was sitting on the couch, controller in hand, eyes glued to the TV screen. Some loud, flashy game I did not recognize was blasting from the speakers. I scanned the room. No laptop on the coffee table. No charger cord. No backpack. I asked him if he had any homework, and he said he already finished it. Said he had done it all at school. His voice was casual, like this was nothing new. Then he told me he had earned some game time. I did not press him, just watched him for a while, acting like I was interested in the game. I asked what he was playing. He rattled off a title I had never heard of, something new, something expensive looking. Graphics were wild, real polished. Not the kind of stuff you see on a phone or some cheap plug-and-play toy. I asked him what he was playing it on. He hesitated for a second, just a flicker. Then he said, "My friend gave me his old console." Said it too fast, too rehearsed. That was the moment the switch flipped in my head. I had bought that laptop less than a month ago. Brand new. Still had the receipt in my glove box. And here he was, surrounded by top-tier gaming gear, playing a game that probably cost $60 on its own, claiming it was all just hand-me-downs. Yeah, no, I was not buying it. Still, I let it slide. Just nodded, finished my food, and told him to keep his grades up. But as I left, I glanced back through the living room window, and what I saw confirmed everything. That old console? It was the latest model, fresh out of the box. I could still see the plastic film on the side of the controller. Not a scratch on it. My stomach turned. I did not want to believe it. But deep down, I already knew. The laptop was gone, and Jason had traded the future for something shiny. I could not sleep that night. I lay there staring at the ceiling, replaying everything. His reaction when I showed up, the weird story about the friend's console, the missing laptop, the school emails. All of it circling like a bad song on repeat. By morning, I had made up my mind. I was going to ask him, not dance around it, not hint. I was going to ask. That Saturday, I invited him to my place. Told him we could grab burgers, hang out a bit. I figured maybe, away from his mom, he would open up. The kid used to love spending time with me. He still looked up to me, or at least I thought he did. He showed up in good spirits. Talked about some game update, some new levels or skins. I do not even remember what he was saying. I was only half listening. My mind was already 3 steps ahead. When we got back to my place, I waited until we sat down. The food was still hot, the air still casual. Then I said his name. Not loud, not angry, just calm. And I asked him where the laptop was. His chewing slowed. He looked up at me, blinked a few times like he had not heard the question right. I repeated it. "Where's the laptop, Jason?" This time he leaned back. His eyes shifted away. And that was all the confirmation I needed. He shrugged, said it real nonchalantly, like he was talking about a pair of shoes or an old hoodie. "Oh, I traded it," he said. "Got a good deal." I stared at him, waiting for the rest, waiting for some kind of joke. But he was dead serious. He went on to explain, like he had rehearsed this in his head already, that the laptop was not really his thing. Said it felt boring. Said he could do school stuff at the library anyway. And that some kid at school had a brand new console and wanted to swap. So Jason made the deal. No hesitation. No heads up. Just gone. I felt something break in me right then. Not a loud snap. More like a slow, bitter crack. This was not just about electronics. This was about trust. About what that gift meant. I told him I bought that laptop to help him build something. To learn. To grow. And he looked me dead in the face and said, "Yeah, but I got more use out of this." He thought it was a win. He thought he had upgraded. That was the part that hit the hardest. Not that he did it, but that he saw nothing wrong with it. I sat there in silence. Burger getting cold. Hands clenched tight under the table. This was not just a trade. This was a slap in the face. And the worst part? The betrayal had just begun. I dropped Jason off without saying much. He did not seem to notice my silence. Probably figured I was just tired or distracted. But my jaw was locked the entire ride. My knuckles turned white from gripping the steering wheel too hard. I needed space. I needed to think. The next day, I called my sister. I told her, straight out, what happened. I said Jason sold the laptop I bought him. I told her the kid was now sitting on a gaming console worth more than a week's paycheck at my first job. I expected her to be shocked, maybe even angry. She was not. She laughed. Not a big belly laugh or anything, just a dismissive, "Oh, that's Jason." Like I had just told her he forgot to take the trash out. I told her it was not funny, that I worked extra hours to pay for that thing, that it was supposed to help him succeed, that it meant something. She sighed. One of those dramatic, overdone sighs that carries more attitude than air. "Mike," she said, "he's a kid. He just wanted something fun. He didn't mean any harm." I could not believe it. I asked her if she even understood what I was saying, that he threw away a gift that could have shaped his future for something that would distract him from it. She brushed it off again, said it was not like he burned it or smashed it. He traded it. Kids trade stuff all the time, she said. I reminded her that this was not a toy or some school lunch swap. It was a brand new laptop. He sold an investment for a distraction. I told her this was not about the money. This was about what it represented. But she would not hear it. Then, like clockwork, the rest of the family started chiming in. Our mom called me later that day, said I was being too harsh, that Jason was still learning, and I needed to show patience. My uncle texted me a passive-aggressive Bible verse about forgiveness. My cousin said, "At least he's not out doing drugs." As if that was the bar now. Everyone kept defending him. Not a single person said, "You're right." Not one. And that was the moment it clicked. They were never going to see it the way I did. Because for them, my effort meant nothing. My sacrifice, invisible. My intention, ignored. To them, I was just the uncle with a good job. The one who always showed up. The one who always gave. But giving only goes so far when no one respects what you give. And suddenly, I realized, I was not mad at Jason. I was mad at myself. Because I knew better. And I gave anyway. The next weekend, I got invited to a family barbecue. Just a small thing at Carrie's house. Jason was excited, texting me pictures of burgers he wanted to try grilling and some soda flavors he had picked out. I almost ignored the invite. Part of me wanted to stay home, bury myself in work, maybe clean out the garage like I kept saying I would. But something pulled me there. Curiosity, maybe. Or the need to see it all for myself, to confirm what I already knew. I pulled up around 4. Kids were running around the yard. Carrie was setting out chips, and Jason was inside yelling at the TV. His game was on, loud as ever. And there it was. The console, front and center in the living room. Glossy. New. Hooked up to a flat-screen TV that had not been there last time I visited. There were extra controllers on the table, too. Not cheap ones. Wireless, limited edition, bright colors. Jason saw me walk in. He grinned and waved one of the controllers like it was a trophy. Said something about leveling up or unlocking new maps. I could barely hear over the roaring in my ears. I just nodded and walked outside. Sat down in a lawn chair and stared out at the backyard for a while. Everyone else was laughing, tossing cornhole bags, eating hot dogs. Like nothing had happened. Like none of it mattered. Eventually, my aunt came over. She asked how I was doing. I gave her a half shrug. She looked around, leaned in a bit, and said something that made my stomach turn. "You know," she said, "you probably should have just bought him the console to begin with. It would have made him happier." She smiled like she had just solved some great mystery. That was it. That was the moment I felt the last bit of air leave my lungs. They still did not get it. I had tried to change something. To steer one kid, just one, in a different direction. I had spent weeks picking that laptop out. Compared specs, read reviews, double-checked the warranty. I had imagined Jason learning skills that would help him break out of the mess our family always seemed stuck in. Coding, designing, building. I saw a future for him. And all they saw was entertainment. To them, fun was more important than opportunity. Comfort more important than growth. And Jason? He had absorbed every bit of that mindset. When dinner was served, I stayed in my chair. Ate nothing. Said nothing. Because right then, something inside me shifted. This was no longer just about a laptop. This was about a pattern. A cycle. And I was done pretending it did not exist. I left early that night. No dramatic speech. No guilt-tripping lecture. I just stood up, said a polite, "Thanks for dinner," and walked out. Jason barely looked up from his game. Carrie waved without even turning around. I sat in my truck for a long time before driving off. Engine running, radio off. My hands resting on the steering wheel like I was waiting for a reason to stay. But there wasn't one. That ride home, quietest one I have ever taken. Not because there was nothing to say, but because I had finally said enough. At least to myself. I realized something on that drive, something I had been avoiding for years. Giving without boundaries is not love. It is surrender. And I had been surrendering for too long. You want to know the truth? This was not the first time something like this had happened. Not the first gift wasted. Not the first effort shrugged off. It had always been something. A bike I bought that got traded for sneakers. A tablet that vanished within a month. Even small things, like helping with bills, always ended in excuses or silence. But this one hit different. Because this time, I gave him something that could have changed his life. And instead, he turned it into a toy. And then the people around him told him that was okay. That I was the problem for expecting more. I started pulling back after that. Slowly at first. I skipped the next few hangouts. I stopped replying to the "can you help us with" messages. When Carrie asked if I could look at Jason's science fair project, I told her he should probably use that new console to figure it out. She did not like that. Said I was punishing a child for not being what I wanted him to be. But that was never it. I just wanted him to have a choice. A real one. And now, he was being raised in a house where choices like that were treated like inconveniences. 2 weeks later, my mom called. She said Jason missed me. That he felt bad. That he wanted to show me something. I agreed to come by. And what I saw when I walked through that door, that was the final nail. Jason had used his allowance, and a few more trades, to upgrade his console setup even more. A neon gaming chair. Headphones with LED lights. A ring light for his streaming channel. He looked at me with pride and said, "Pretty cool, right? I got rid of the last old thing I had." He was talking about a backpack I gave him. A sturdy one meant for carrying his school gear. He traded it for a wall poster with some video game character flipping the middle finger. That was it. That was the exact moment I decided. I was done giving. I wish I could say I sat him down and gave some wise speech. Something deep. Something that changed his heart. But that is not how it went. When Jason showed me that gaming setup, glowing like a mini Vegas in the corner of the living room, I did not say much. I just stood there, staring at the whole thing. Watching the way his face lit up, completely unaware of what it cost him. Not the money. The opportunity. I walked back out to the porch where Carrie was smoking her usual menthol, scrolling through some dating app like it was her job. I told her I would not be buying Jason anything else. Not school stuff. Not birthday presents. Not gift cards. Nothing. Her response? Wow. Bit dramatic, don't you think? I let that sit there for a moment. Then I said something I had never told her before. Not with that kind of finality. You do not get it, I said. Because no one in this family ever learned the difference between love and entitlement. She scoffed, rolled her eyes, said something about how I had always thought I was better than everyone. That I acted like some hero just because I had a steady job and no kids weighing me down. And maybe she was right about one thing. I did think differently. Because I had spent years watching people throw away chances like they meant nothing. Not just Jason. All of them. Over and over again. And I kept showing up. Kept giving. Kept hoping this time would be different. But now I knew better. I told her I was stepping back. Not out of anger. Not out of revenge. Just clarity. If people cannot respect the intention behind a gift, they do not deserve the gift. She asked what that meant exactly. I told her it meant I would still show up to family events, still be polite, still answer texts now and then. But I would not be the wallet. I would not be the fallback plan. And I definitely would not be the one carrying everyone else's weight just because I could. I left after that. No fight. No raised voices. Just peace. And maybe that hurt her more than anything. Because people like that, they expect anger. They know how to deflect it, twist it, turn it back on you. But quiet? Boundaries? That kind of silence speaks louder than anything. Jason texted me later that night. Said he was sorry if he disappointed me. But then he followed it up with, "I still think I got a better deal." And just like that, I knew. He still had no clue what he had lost. A few weeks passed. Felt longer. Things were quiet. No more requests. No last-minute emergencies. No, "Hey, Mike, quick favor?" Text at midnight. And honestly, it felt good. Like I had been carrying this heavy pack for years and finally dropped it by the side of the road. But the silence did not last. It never does. Mid-October rolled in. Jason's school reached out to Carrie about his performance. He was failing 2 subjects. One teacher mentioned that Jason never submitted a digital project, something that needed basic spreadsheet work. Another said he refused to use the school library, claimed he had better stuff to do after hours. Carrie called me that night, stressed out, asking if I still had the laptop receipt. I asked why. She said maybe we could get it back. Maybe the kid who got it would return it, or his parents would be willing to swap it back. I could hear her lighting a cigarette in the background, voice already annoyed like this was my mess to fix. I reminded her that Jason made the trade. She said he was too young to understand the value. I said he was old enough to negotiate it on his own. Then came the kicker. Well, she said, voice sharp now, if you hadn't given him something so expensive in the first place, none of this would have happened. I actually laughed. Not loud, not sarcastic. Just a short, tired sound. Because that was it. Right there. That was the mindset. The truth behind all of it. I gave him a tool. He turned it into a toy. And now they blamed me for handing him something they were never prepared to teach him how to use. But I stayed calm. Told her I did not have the receipt. Even if I did, I would not be calling anyone. Said I hoped she figured it out. Then I hung up. After that, it all started unraveling. Jason lost interest in school entirely. Skipped assignments. Got suspended for mouthing off to a teacher. Carrie asked for help with tutoring money. I said no. Then came Thanksgiving. I showed up, sat at the table, brought a pie like always. No one said much. The air was stiff, like everyone was holding something in. Jason barely made eye contact. The game console was still there, but it looked older now, already scratched, already dusty in some corners. He played it half-heartedly while Carrie drank wine in the kitchen. Halfway through dinner, my cousin leaned in and said, "So I guess you're on strike now, huh?" I looked up, confused. He nodded toward Carrie and smirked. "Word is, you cut the cord." And I realized something else in that moment. They did not just expect the help, they relied on it. I was never the generous uncle. I was the resource. And now that I had stopped, the whole structure was tilting. Jason's grades, Carrie's budget, family dinners. Even the jokes at my expense had gotten quieter. Because they were starting to understand. When you treat generosity like a guarantee, you forget that it can vanish the second someone chooses to stop being taken for granted. It was around Christmas when the last piece of the puzzle slid into place. Jason sent me a message, short and cold. "Hey, can you help me buy a new laptop? I need one for school now." No apology, no reflection, not even a question, really. Just a flat request, like I was a vending machine with a memory card. I stared at the message for a long time. That should have been my breaking point. But the truth is, I was already broken. This was just confirmation that they never understood what I had tried to do. Not Jason, not Carrie, not anyone. It was never about the laptop. It was about what the laptop meant. To me, it was a bridge to something better. A quiet shot at giving a kid a fighting chance. I saw a spark in Jason, something worth feeding. And I fed it the best way I knew how. But to him, it was just currency. He had flipped that bridge for a flashy distraction. Sold possibility for dopamine. And then expected me to come running again when the console lost its shine and school came knocking. I did not reply. I left the message on read. Later that week, Carrie called and left a voicemail. Said Jason was upset, that I was being unfair, that this could be a turning point for him. I never returned the call. Because here is the truth no one wants to say out loud. Generosity without respect is just fuel for entitlement. You can give and give and give, but if the people receiving never learn to value what they are given, then all you are doing is enabling. I used to think cutting someone off meant turning cold, that it meant abandoning them. But now I see it clearly. Sometimes the most loving thing you can do is stop. Stop rescuing people who do not want to be saved. Stop giving to people who treat your effort like spare change. Stop hoping they will wake up one day and suddenly see you, understand you, appreciate you, because that day may never come. And if it does, it will not be because of one more gift. It will be because the giving ended, because you drew the line, because you said, enough. Jason might figure it out someday, or he might not. That part is not on me anymore. I made my choice, and I live with it, clear-eyed and quiet. The silence I left behind, it was not cruelty. It was closure.